Hello everybody, I hope you are well. Now today we've got a video from the Modern Aikidost Podcast. Now Tristram has been running this for a year or so now, I think, and he's had some fantastic guests on the show, and more recently he's been doing video interviews. And today's video interview features Azu from the AikidoFlow channel, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. One of the comments we get fairly commonly, especially if we're doing solely an Aikido video, is that our Aikido doesn't work in real life, and I'll give me one example where this has worked, etc., etc. And look, I understand that. A lot of the perception of Aikido is that it's a largely defensive kind of existential art, and people miss the fact that it's basically got its roots in jiu-jitsu. And with all arts, you can't really say that art is this or that art is that, because it's entirely down to the practitioner and their attitude and of course the situation, what's appropriate for the situation. So in this video we've got a guy who is basically a professional martial artist, but he's also a doorman, he's a bouncer, and he tells us clearly firsthand how he uses Aikido pretty much every day of the week. This is fascinating stuff, well worth watching. Grab yourself a coffee because it's quite a long clip. Really good stuff. I hope you enjoy it. Consider smashing the like button. Consider subscribing. Have fun.
Welcome to my conversation with Azu. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, talking with Azu from AikidoFlow. Very popular channel on YouTube. I'm sure all of you have seen him or know of his work and the work that AikidoFlow is doing. Very much looking forward to having him on the show because of his background with bouncing, martial arts, making Aikido practical. And so I wanted to bring him on. Welcome, Azu. It's good to have you here.
It's good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So I see you're growing a beard in the COVID fashion, or the COVID model of men letting their hair grow out a little bit.
I do like my beard. I ride motorbikes as well, so the beard kind of goes with the motorcycle style. And
I've got a bike myself. I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, very cool. Well, let me kick it off just with a little question, a little opener, and that is let's talk about your background a little bit. You've talked about this on your channel, but if any type of person to me is a testament to a martial art being practical, it's people that use it in their profession. And I would put bouncers and doormen right at the top of the list for people that have to handle violent people, but they can't be violent about it. They don't have the protection of the state to say, you're not going to prosecute this guy. And so that's why I like it when people who have that practical skill background can be a testament. And I think that's one of the reasons AikidoFlow is such a popular channel, is that Aikido practitioners, they like the idea that Aikido is practical.
Yeah, definitely practical for me. Like, I've used it in many scenarios, and it's helped. I admit there have been times when I first kind of started to use it. When you're in a confrontational situation and you try to do something, a lot of the times you tend to kind of freeze and forget. But once I kind of got used to it and had more and more confrontations and had opportunities to use it, that's when I really started to learn what works and what doesn't work. And it really worked for me.
Sure.
In the nightclub industry, you can't go around punching and kicking people unless it really kicks off. Then you're kind of justified, if you're outnumbered and stuff like that. But normally when it comes to just disgruntled clientele, you have to handle them in such a way that they're not going to walk away with a broken nose or a broken jaw. And I found Aikido was absolutely perfect for that. So yeah, it's worked for me so many times.
There's, I think, also a great philosophy influence that comes from people like you who've worked in those areas, which is, I have to protect the club. And that's not just from tables being broken and customers being hurt. That's also protecting the bar or the club from being sued from somebody who had too much violence put against them. Yes. And I think that is something that all of us as martial artists, I think, would take to heart. We don't want to cause excessive harm for a particular situation.
Yeah, exactly, and also exactly, and the thing about great thing about Aikido is that it's given me that choice. It gives me the choice. Do I need to go in hard at this point, or do I just need to just restrain?
Hmm.
And 99% of the time, it's just a case of restraining somebody. And
Hmm.
you can. The good thing about Aikido, like you put on like a certain lock, like a Nikkyo or Ikkyo or something like that, you can, especially when you're doing like Nikkyo or Sankyo, you can kind of put a little bit of pain on, and if they're not feeling you, you put a little bit more. So,
Yep.
it gives you that choice to kind of just let them feel a little bit of pain and then just give them an opportunity to just walk away. But
Sure.
often, sometimes they don't. You need to kind of just crank it up a notch and just let them really feel a little bit of pain. But it's still great because you've got onlookers and nobody really knows what I'm doing.
Hmm.
As far as they're concerned, I'm just holding this guy by the arm or whatever. I'm just trying to restrain him, like keep him steady or whatever. They don't realize that I'm actually got them in some sort of lock and this person is feeling a little bit of pain. And like I say, I don't like to inflict pain on people, but sometimes, my mum always used to say, if you don't hear, you need to feel. So most people hear, but when they don't hear, sometimes they need to feel, unfortunately.
Yep.
So you need to
That's
make
an
them
old school mother right there.
Exactly.
Old school mom, that's for sure. I've got a couple of mentors in law enforcement, and they taught me about this, the just what you're talking about, the pain thing. They said use it like a pulse, where you get the lock, but they're still wanting to fight you, and you pulse the pain a little bit and just
Yeah,
back off and just say, okay, this could get
yeah,
worse, but I don't want to do that. Let's just calm
exactly,
things down. It's a pain is a tool. It's not just like a thermonuclear bomb you drop on somebody. Um,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. It doesn't have to be excessive pain. It can just be give them an example of what potential pain they could be in. So
right.
it just gives them an opportunity to walk away.
Hmm.
And the majority of the time they just get up and they just walk away, which
Sure.
is why it's so great for me. And often whenever I do techniques at work, people always come up and they start asking me, "What was that? What did you do?" And then they want to know what it was and they want to learn. And then it ends up, you're on the door with the rest of your colleagues. You're having a little Aikido lesson. When the door is just quiet, you're all just kind of doing a little bit of training. And
Nice.
so yeah, it's great in that sense because it's like people just see it, and because not many people know it. A lot of the people I work with, their background's totally different. A lot of
Hmm.
jujitsu people, people who do Thai boxing and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So their background is different. So when they see what I do, they're always eager to learn because they realize that often what they do, don't get wrong, they're great martial arts, but on the door, you can't punch people, you can't kick people, you don't want to be rolling around on the floor. As much as brilliant as jiu-jitsu is, I don't want to roll around on the floor with anybody because then their mate comes and kicks me in the head when I'm
Hmm.
on the floor restraining them. So that's why Aikido has just been absolutely perfect for me.
Yeah, and that's, I think, why within the spectrum of all the martial arts and the martial sports, they all have their specialties and they all have the areas that they shine. And the way that
Mm-hmm.
I see it is Aikido and even Judo shines with, you have two people that are standing, you're both on your feet, you both approached, you start getting into range, and there's probably something else going on. There's probably a conversation going on, or some sort of verbal exchange, which you don't have in a sport fight. You don't have
Uh-huh.
arguing, puffing up, um, the intimidation, the threats,
Yeah.
the monkey dance, as it's sometimes
Yeah.
called. You don't have any of that stuff, or the raw ambush. Once the referee
Mm-hmm.
says go, both fighters know that they're there to fight. But in a
Yeah.
civilian situation, you're
Mm-hmm.
not always sure if the person that's barking at you is actually going to fight or not. And
That's
that's a
true.
huge variable, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's definitely. And the way I identify that is, I remember when I first started studying Aikido when I was I think I must have been about 18 years old. And I remember me and my cousin, we went to see a Steven Seagal movie, Out for Justice,
Hmm.
in the cinema. And we saw it on a Friday night. And I think the following Monday, we were in a dojo and we were training. And I remember my teacher at the time, he said to me, put one hand in the air. Let me see your palm. And I put one hand, and he said to me, put the other hand up. And I put this hand up. And he said to me, take a step back. And I stepped back. He says, take another step back. And I stepped back. And he kept telling me to step back. And I kept stepping back, stepping back. I'm thinking, what's this guy playing at? What's he trying to show me? This ain't martial arts. And he goes to me, that's your first move. If you're in a confrontational situation, you put your hands up and you step back. And if that person keeps on coming forwards, then you know that this person is going to potentially attack you. And also, for all the onlookers, you know, back then we didn't even have mobile phones. It was just like CCTV with videotapes. But these days you've got so many mobile phones, and all the onlookers, when the police come after the carnage, every witness will say, well, the big black dude, he was stepping back. He kept stepping back and he didn't want any trouble, you know, but a guy kept coming forward towards him, and that's when it all kicked off. At least you've always got that in your defense. And especially these days where everyone's putting a mobile phone at you, CCTV is now HD quality. It's not like videotapes back in my days. And so everybody's watching, and you need to always project that you don't want any, you're not the hostile one. You're the one who's passive. It's a passive stance, but it's also a defensive stance because your hands are out in front of you and they're there to protect you, and you're just stepping backwards. And everyone can see that you don't want any trouble, and this person continues to come forward. Then in my mind, you know, depending on how far I've walked back, once I hit the wall behind me, I legitimately in my mind can defend myself, regardless of whether or not this person has attacked yet, because I've backed off. You keep coming towards me. You're showing me aggression. Therefore, I can retaliate. That's the way I look at it. So for me, that was one of the best moves, best technique I learned, just putting your hands up and stepping backwards.
Clearing some space.
I always do.
In the U.S. legal system, they call that being an active participant. You're showing you're not trying to be an active participant, as opposed to puffing up and saying, you want a piece of this? Now it doesn't really matter then who threw the first punch. You actively decided to get into that situation, and now you really don't have any justifiable self-defense.
Yeah, exactly.
Claim anymore.
Exactly. And the thing is that I know what I'm about to say is going to sound bad, but
lay it in there.
When you step back, they can see you, but no one knows what you're saying. You can be stepping back and saying, "What? Come on, do you want some of this? Do you want some?" Yeah. But your body language is saying something else. Right. You know, you could be saying whatever you want. You could be talking about the person's mother, but all the onlookers, CCTV, they can't hear you. Right. So as far as they're concerned, you're the passive one. You're stepping back. You don't want any trouble, even though you're saying, you know, whatever it is you want to say about, you know, offensive to this person.
Sure. That actually crosses over something I've heard from people that talk about, you know, advising especially young women that go on dates and stuff, and they say that big red flag is when you say no to somebody and they ignore it. You say, don't take your hand off my leg, please don't touch me, or please don't stroke my hair, and they ignore you and they keep going. To me, what you just described was the physical version of the same way. Hey, I back up, I don't want to fight, I don't want to be involved in this, I don't want any trouble. You're basically saying no, and as they pursue you, now there's that big red flag that says, I don't care if you say no, I'm going to keep coming anyway. Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good strategic approach.
Yes. Your body language is probably the most important thing, because you can read a lot from another person just from your body language. And often, because you're stepping back, they feel like they've got the upper hand. And now they're kind of almost underestimating you, like, okay, this person's backing off. Obviously, they're scared of me, you know, because he's backing off.
Any good predator can smell fear.
Yes, exactly. So you're almost
or submission.
Yes, exactly. You're actually submissive to them, and they just feel like, okay, I've won. And often, that will often be enough to make that person walk away, because they feel like, oh, he's submissive. He doesn't want any trouble. Nine times out of 10, they don't want trouble. They're just there because it's more a pride thing now, you know. But if you're seen backing off, You know, look, I don't want any of this. They feel like, okay, I've won. Yeah, you're scared. Now I can turn around and walk away. And often that's what happens. But if they don't walk away, that's when you can retaliate.
You know, one of the other things about bouncers that and professionals in security that I think connects to average people, and that is the principle that if you ever encounter some sort of violence, just always leave. And on the surface, that looks like a good strategy, and a lot of times it is. And one of my favorite sayings is, if you get into a situation that you feel is kind of, your safety is kind of an issue, ask yourself, do I really need to be in this room right now? Is there some place I would be better for me to be? Do I have to be here? And a lot of times the answer will be no. I've gotten some great stories from other martial artists about times where I said, I should have just said, no, I don't need to be in this room, and I should have left. But there are times when there are innocent people that could be hurt. There could be, for a bouncer, it'd be doing his job and saying, this guy is going to go off the rails and he's going to hurt somebody else, or he's going to hurt the club. I need to intervene and deal with this. And I think even the average person might encounter their wife, their spouse, their children. Somebody might be approached and threatened. They can't just leave. They have to intervene. And that's where I think there's a level of self-protection that goes on, but just saving your own skin. It's saving somebody else, an innocent person.
Exactly. Because I know the club I'm currently working at, we've got about anywhere between 20 and 25 security. So if I'm in a competitive situation and the person I'm the person they're targeting, I can say, look, I'm going to go inside, let me go to the toilet. Hopefully by the time I come back, that person's gone, because there's another loads of other security that can come and take my position. And just to kind of, make that person calm down, especially if it's me, if I'm the one who's kicked them out or refused them entry, and their anger is directed at me. Once I disappear, the person will calm down. But sometimes you're in a situation where it's like, before I used to do security full time, I only do it part time now, but I would start at 5 o'clock, and it'll be me and one other security starting at 5 o'clock. And when you got two of us and you got four guys in front of you, you can't walk away. You need to stay there and defend it, because you can't leave your colleague by itself. You can't pick up the club and walk away. You're there, so you can't move. And that's a scenario where you have to just stand your ground and just, and you can't even really back off, because I'm always on the front door. So you stand on the front door, how far can I step back? But just show my hands, don't want in trouble. I know the CCTV is watching, don't want in trouble, but sometimes you just can't walk away. You can't walk away.
We had here in the Twin Cities, there's an amusement park out at the edge of town, and very popular, very family-oriented place. It's huge. And a couple summers ago, we had a guy with his family, his wife and his two daughters were there, and they were leaving the park at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they go out of the gate, and there's some ne'er-do-wells that were hanging out near there, and they're catcalling the teenage girls, and this guy decided to hurt let's just get to the car and go. They looked over to the security booth, and it was empty. There was nobody there. So he said, we're just going to leave. These guys followed him. They got to the car and attacked him and beat him so badly he was in the hospital for like a week. So even the idea of let's just leave, let's go, doesn't mean you're not going to be followed. And at that point, there's a strategic kind of mind that needs to kick in, is where can I go that's going to be a better advantage to me and not be caught in between a couple of cars out in the middle of a parking lot with 10,000 cars out there and nobody around. These things can happen. It's sad that self-protection or self-defense isn't just a really simple formula. It's not.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've always said to my partner, I've always said to her, listen, if ever we're out and we're in a confrontational situation, and we're trying to walk away and we can't, I'm going to give you the keys and you go to the car and you let me deal with it, because it's going to be worse for me if I do have to fight and she's running around between us and trying to break it up and hold everybody back and, no, don't fight. Therefore, I need to protect you and myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be better off just having to protect myself. So I've got more chance of getting out of this if you make yourself scarce. I've warned her about that. And I know it'll be a hard thing for her to do, to walk away, but she needs to walk away. And whatever, if she's waiting around the corner for me, if she's going to go and get help, she's going to go and sit in the car, wherever she's going to go, you know, we'll meet up later and let me deal with this.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because I've had the very same conversation. And my wife, she's short. She comes from a Spanish bloodline, and it runs hot. And boy, if somebody wants to threaten me, me is not the one they're going to have to worry about. They're going to have to worry about her. She's going to go flying past me, throwing shoes, and going to attack like a Wolverine. So I had to tell, like, I want you to if I say time to go, you take off. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds and I'll be right behind you. But do not turn into an attack beast, because now I'm going to have to, you know, I'm going to have to deal with that situation too. She's a fireball, and so, but I think the same thing is true. You have to think like tactically at that point, you know, how many things can you juggle to have to try to keep up with? And you know, as we practice randori, we practice dealing with multiple people, but we don't have friendlies in the way of trying to work around those type of people. In fact, I was thinking, and I was going to ask you about this with your security. Do you basically do a type of randori training with multiple nages with your security people to give them the idea of how do we checkmate somebody, approach them where they can't be seen, to apprehend them, or that sort of thing? Because that would be an interesting exercise.
Yeah, it would be, sort of, in a way. We never kind of full on practice because there's no time. You're on the door. But one thing we do discuss is to let somebody lead. And when I say, look, let go, I've got him, you let go. Because there's nothing worse than when you're trying to restrain somebody and one person pulling in one way, the other person pulling in the other way. You end up kind of almost fighting with each other, as well as trying to restrain this person. So once I've got some sort of lock on, a wrist lock or something, I always tell them, let go. You know, I've got him. He's not going to do anything. And then they understand that they need to let go, because I can just put him in like there's a lock where you get the hand down like this.
Yep,
and
the gooseneck. Yep.
Yes, and you grab the thumb and do this. Once I've got them in that, I can walk wherever I want with them, and they're not going to do anything to me. Or even the one I love is when you've got a Sankyo, and you know, when you got them like this, and if they try to hit you with the other hand, they're turning in on themselves and inflicting pain on themselves. So that's one also which I love. Yeah. And once I've got them in that, I say, look, let go, I've got him. I walk up the road with them, let them feel a bit of pain and say, listen, you need to walk away. And they always, 9 times out of 10, they'll walk away. But yeah, that's what we do discuss, just not to kind of let somebody lead. So
it's like a teamwork thing.
Yes, exactly. Because I know some security are very overzealous. They're too eager. You know, I'm on the front door and I get a call on the radio, code red inside. Now, I tell you what, 99% of code reds are just, you know, it's just nothing. It's just like 2 guys fighting, you know, but you got one security inside who panics a bit, shouts a code red, everyone goes running in. I don't run. I stay on the door. I just stay on the door, because I know if it's really bad, the carnage will continue when they get to the front door, and then I'll be, because most of the time you end up running inside, and then you hear on the radio, everybody stand down, it's all fine. Because we've got 20 guys inside anyway. So I let them deal with it, but some security will always just run because they want a piece of the action. I want a piece of the action. You know, if it comes to me, it comes to me. But 99% of the time, they've handled it inside. There's no need for me to run inside. It comes outside, then I'll deal with it. A lot of them are too overzealous. So when it comes to restraining somebody with another member of security, they want to be the one to, even, especially if the person has maybe done something to them, you know, they may have thrown a drink at the security or something like that, or punched them. They want that revenge. And they want to just, you know, get in there and, you know, get their 2 pence worth. I'm not about that. I'm just about.
And a pro won't be. The cool head is the one that does
exactly
the real job.
I want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that a very long time ago when I worked in a nightclub called Elbow Rooms, and I remember I went for the interview. They're looking for a new head of security. I went for the interview, and they said to me, "Look, we need to tell you something. The reason why we're interviewing for a new head of security is because the previous head of security got shot on this door."
Mm.
And the area it was in is quite a bad area. Quite a lot of so-called wannabe gangsters would come to the club.
Mm-hmm.
And so they basically said to me, "Look, so head on, we got shot here. We need another member of security. It's quite a rough place, but we need someone who can, who can handle the customers, who's not too aggressive, not too active." So they gave me the job. And I remember one of the first couple of months I'm on the door, this guy comes up, and I didn't like his vibe. So I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, can't come in. I always use the excuse, members only, whatever, guest list or whatever." And he looks at me and he said to me, "All right, I understand. I know exactly what happens to security on this door. You wait there." And he turns around to walk away. Now, I'm thinking, whoa, he's going to go and get, obviously, he's making references to the previous doorman who got shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I just took him out, leg scooped him, end up, bish, bash, bosh, and then, he's on the floor. Next minute, ambulance, police, I'm in handcuffs, and I'm away. Then I'm back out a few months later, another incident, about 20 guys in the club fighting. We managed to get them all out. They tried to rush the door again. So first one comes, bang, bang. Second one, bang, bang. Third one, I leg sweeped him, hit the floor, hit his head on the floor, split his head open. Again, police, ambulance, me in handcuffs. So I'm going to court for 2 cases at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my solicitor, my lawyer, saying to me, "You might go to jail." He's saying to me, he said, and this went on for a year, because I don't know how it works in the States, but in England, it's just so long, such a long process. Your first day in court, you just confirm your name,
Mm-hmm.
Then they tell you to go home. Solicitor says, "We need to take more statements." You go away, you come back. Second time, "We haven't checked the CCTV yet." You go home, and this is going on and on. This for 2 separate cases. And I'm thinking to myself, if I get away with one, I'm not getting away with the other. I'm probably going to jail. And for a moment, I'm thinking, how am I going to tell my mum? How am I going to tell my girlfriend? How am I going to tell my family? And that was probably the worst year of my life.
Wow.
And eventually, thankfully, the club I worked at, I knew one of the kind of local gangsters. So I spoke to him. He went by the name of Jay, not his real name, but that's what he called himself. Mm-hmm. I spoke to him. I told him my situation, and he knew the guy who threatened me. So he just went to him and said to him, "Don't come to court." And the guy kind of listened and didn't come to court. The next case, I think the guys just didn't turn up to court at all. So eventually both cases got thrown out.
Wow.
And that was like the biggest relief. But that went on for a year of my life. And it was just like, I remember being depressed for that year, thinking, I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail. My sister was, the way he was talking, he was saying, "Look, you haven't done anything like this before. So what we're going to fight for in court is hopefully they won't give you the maximum sentence." This is what he's telling me. Mm-hmm. He said, "You're going to fight so that my sentence isn't that long." Mm. And I'm thinking, I'm hearing the word jail. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's a cold slap in the face.
Yeah, exactly. And so from then, I just learned, like, in any situation, I need to just kind of, I need to hold it down, and there are situations where, you might need to attack, and you might need to defend yourself, and you might need to act before that person's even done something. I knew that guy was going to go away and get a gun and come back to the club. Mm-hmm. And, so I thought, I have to stop him. Mm-hmm. But it just made me, that taught me a lot. That really taught me a lot, that experience. And from then on, it just made me, it humbled me, and it made me not kind of be so eager to run to where the trouble is. If
Right.
it comes to me, it comes to me. Because even that alone in court will work against you. You know, if you go to the trouble, it's going to work against you. Where if the trouble comes to you, you're in a better position, and you can't really do anything about it. It taught me so much. It taught me so much, and since then, I've just kind of I've humbled myself, and I've just been a lot more passive and more kind of understanding, and just tried to resolve every single confrontation without any form of violence. But obviously, it's not always possible.
Right. You know, your story reminds me of a time long ago when I was working security, one of the first times, and the guy was running security. He and I were helping the band set up their equipment and get it hauled in. It's fairly early in the evening, and I'm standing right next to him. I remember this very vividly. And he looks up and he watches this guy walk in the club, and he says, "Watch this guy." And you know, he said it pretty seriously. So of course I looked right at him, and I'm looking at the belt, looking at, you know, what did he see to say this guy's going to be trouble? And as I'm watching this guy, he says, "Mark my words, by the end of the night, we're going to be hauling him out of here."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at him, just like, it seemed to me like I was just a guy walking in a club. He didn't look like it, you know, troublemaker. He wasn't dressed like a thug, you know, older guy. And I'm studying this guy, and I asked the security dude. I said, "Do you know this guy?" "No, never seen him before. Never been in here as far as I know, but just mark my word, watch this dude." And sure enough, by midnight, he was drunk, and we hauled him out of there. And that got me. It was a profound lesson that somebody could have that level of body language eye for what he was looking at, and that led me into a path of profiling and of the art of profiling, like how FBI and criminologists will profile not only body language but behaviors, all of these things. It's a fascinating science, and people that are in environments like that build just naturally that eye of the gut, the instinct, of trouble. Like, and it's not 100%, but it's a pretty high percentage of when that instinct gets honed, and your ability to watch and see for potential trouble. You know what it starts to look like, and most normal people are oblivious to it, and I was at that time too.
You could often. It's just a feeling you have. It's a feeling you have. You see someone. There's certain traits. Like, it's sad that we have to actually profile people, because I know here you profile someone, they're like, "Oh, you know, it's just because of, you know, the color of my skin or what I'm wearing or something like that." And they'll always assume that. But sometimes,
which is not a true definition of profiling. That's not really what it's about.
Exactly. I've seen people walk up to the club, dressed smart, you know, in a suit and everything. But then I look at him from behind. He's wearing a suit, but his pants are hanging down. He's still wearing his trousers in that gangster way with his pants hanging down. I know, okay, you're wearing a suit. You probably bought that 2 years ago. We had a job interview, but really we call them roadmen here. You know, they're always out on the road doing whatever it is they're doing. You're still a roadman, and that just gives me a bad feeling. And I just say, "Nah, I'm sorry, you can't come in." "Yeah, but I'm dressed fine." I said, "Nah." You know, in my head, I'm thinking, "Nah, you're just a roadman in a suit." You know, but that doesn't fool me. So you have to kind of those things. But often, what I do, I always have a conversation with somebody, and what a technique we do on the doors, we refuse them. We say, sorry, you can't come in. I'm sorry, you know, guest this only. And depends on their attitude. If they're like, "Oh, okay, you know, where else is good to go around here?" You know, you have a little chat with them. "Yeah, there's a club here, a club there." And when they turn around to walk out, they say, "Thanks a lot, mate." You stop them. You say, whoa, wait, come in. But a lot of them would be like, "Oh, you really?" And they go into one when you refuse them. And once they do that, that's just a good technique to just suss them out and just say, "No, sorry, you can't come in."
It's kind of an interview.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like, I think everybody's got that certain perception to get a handle when somebody's a little agitated, or they're a little bristling, or they're angry, or there's something that's not at ease with their spirit, and you can really get a feel for it. And that's something it's hard to simulate in a dojo. And I've seen, people that police trainers and whatnot that try to do some role playing, and they can do pretty good because they've seen this behavior a lot. They've seen the beginnings of the monkey dance and the eyes glaring and the shoulders puffed back and some of that behavior. But it's hard to get a thorough scenario training like you would see in real life.
True. We try to implement that in our dojo.
Yeah.
We try. And what I do, I feel I'm quite good at that because I'll put on head protection, chest protection, and I will just take it in turns, and I will come upon my students and I will try to intimidate them. I'll push them, I'll grab them, I'll hold them, I'll try to pin them down. I said, what you got for me? I'll put my hand in their pockets like I'm simulating taking something from them. And I want them to feel my strength. And I want them to feel intimidated. But I need them, I say, you need to take me down. I don't care how you do it, it can be an elbow to the head, punch to the something, but you need to do something, Tenshinagi is a great one, but you need to do something that's going to take me down, and I'm going to try to intimidate you as much as I can. Very rarely do they take me down because the intimidation, even in the dojo, even though we've trained together for the past 2 years, it works. A lot of people, once you kind of get them in that situation, they just freeze up. And so we try to simulate a lot of real life situations, and a lot of the time it works. But to be honest, I'm probably the only one that can do it properly because I've been in those situations, and I'm probably often the biggest person in there, and that's where they really feel the intimidation, and they'll feel the strength, and they'll know I'm stronger than them, and they'll think, oh, can I take this guy down? Which is what I used to go through when I first started training. You train with someone, you get used to it, and then you swap partners, and then you see, like, I'm an orange belt, I'm training with a black belt, and then it all goes through your mind. Can I take this person down? Can I, you start to doubt yourself, and you don't go through with that assertiveness. You tend to kind of hold back, and then it kind of, because you're intimidated. You're intimidated, and so to get over that intimidation, and that took me a very, very long time to be standing on the door and get over that intimidation. And it's what Aikido helped me with so much, just getting over that initial, feeling intimidated. I remember when I first started training Aikido, I was probably, like I say, I was about 18. My sister, I'd got 3 older sisters. Now, one of my sisters just split up with her boyfriend. He was probably I'm about 18, he was probably about 24. He was bigger than me, taller than me, older than me. He came to my workplace, and he comes to me and he says, tell your sister, and I'm thinking I'm some sort of young gangster. I said, shut up, you tell her, don't come to my workplace, and blah, 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 He went outside, he got a rubbish bag out of the bin, and he threw it at me. Then he came at me and he grabbed me by the throat. Now, he's stronger than me. And first I froze. And then I grabbed his hand and I started to try to perform a Nikyo on him. I tried to perform a Nikyo, and it just didn't work. And he was holding me by my neck and slapping me. And I'm trying to do a Nikyo, and I'm just concentrating on this one hand. And I was so experienced. First, I was so inexperienced. First of all, I didn't perform the technique correctly. I was trying to pit my strength against his strength. And he's stronger. I didn't move my body. I could have implemented my arms. So we put the arm over the top and all that stuff. I could have done so many things. And the second thing I could have done, and which I teach my students today, because I teach Aikido, but I've also got like a self-defense class. And whenever somebody grabs you, what you tend to focus on is this hand they're grabbing you with. Someone grabs you by your wrist, like especially with women, they'll focus on getting this wrist out, getting out of that person's grip. But they've got your wrist. You've got this, you've got this, you got your knees, you got your feet. Why focus on this hand on the wrist when you can, chop him in the throat, strike to the throat. You can put a finger in their eye, put two fingers in their nostrils, you know, your thumb in their eyeball, you know, knee in the groin. There's so many things you can do, but we tend to focus on that one point where they've grabbed, and which is what I did when I was inexperienced. And when you're in that,
it's like your mind gets captured.
Yes, exactly. And you just freeze. Everything goes out the window. Everything goes out the window. So it's so nice being able to do Aikido and being in the security industry, because, you know, that happens the first few times and it takes a while to kind of get out of that. And eventually you're in a confrontational situation, you're much calmer, you know, you're much more in control and you're much more alert. And I think the great thing about Aikido is that before I started doing Aikido, like most people, someone throws a punch at you, your instinct is to move back. In Aikido now, my instinct is to move sideways and forwards.
Yes, forwards and sideways, yep.
Yeah, so it's like, that's become my instinct now, which is just, you know, I've seen so many people, so many fights, and someone's throwing punch, but it's backing off, backing off, backing off. I'm thinking, no, move forward now, move forward, you know, and it's like, no, that's an instinct. So you're getting close and you're forward, and now you're in a position where you can do something.
Sure.
So that's just kind of, that helped me to just get out of that, you know, that phase where something happens and you kind of freeze and you just forget everything, you know, and it's just kind of, I've been in a situation where someone's been throwing punches at me and I've just able to kind of keep my eyes on them and just kind of dodge a few times and then move in. Whereas before, my instinct would be like, whoa, 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 you know, let myself move back.
Yeah,
like,
even without subsequent punches, if you move back, you're out of range to really do anything. You need to get it back into range. Whereas you move forward, now you're starting to flood the striker. And strikers don't like to be flooded.
Yeah, exactly. You're putting yourself in a position where they can just keep on throwing more punches. They can just close that gap and just keep on attacking you. But if you know, you don't have to do anything. Once you're getting close, you know, you grab and just be like, oh, you know, calm down, you know. So I've done that a few times. Calm down, let them feel a bit of strength. Even though I'm just holding them or whatever, just, you know, calm down. You're not in a position anymore where they keep on throwing punches. And often, most people don't want trouble. And I'll tell you what, the good thing about being, I'm 6'2". The good thing about being 6'2", being quite big, is the majority of people, when they want to attack me, they want to just hit me as hard as they can and get out of there. No one wants to stand toe to toe and go fight against someone who's bigger than them. They want to just bang and they want to go. And the good thing about that is that the majority of people that attack me, they always come with a big old hook, which with Aikido is just perfect. Just move in and block it, or you absorb it, or, you know, you do whatever, but you just see it coming from a mile away. And that's the advantage of being a big guy, because nobody really wants to stand there and just trade blows with you. They want to hit you. Often they'll pretend to walk away and they'll sneak back again and then try to hit you, boom, and run. As long as your wits are about you, you'll be able to just see it coming and just, you know, that's why Aikido for me, it just worked great. I can't really say it. The only other martial arts I've studied a bit of Wing Chun. There was a guy who used to live across the road from me. We grew up together. He had a dojo in his house, and we used to go there and train. You know, he taught me how to punch, you know, a few blocks and stuff like that. And I thought that was just great, and that was great to combine with the Aikido. I remember I did a bit of kickboxing and a bit of karate, but nothing that I can say that, you know, I've carried with me. That was when I was a teenager. The Wing Chun and the Aikido, you know, it's just been such a great mix, and it's just really helped me in confrontational situations and just being able to just control my attacker, and for us both be able to just walk away at the end of it.
Yeah, Wing Chun does great, especially with tight quarters. And I imagine that a bouncer, a lot of times you just don't have much space. There's always going to be tight space or limited. You know, you got walls, you got other people around. You just you don't have room to do big things.
Yes, exactly. That's why also with Aikido, certain techniques I found are not appropriate when I'm working on the door. Like techniques like Shionagi, we're doing like big circles and stuff like that. So we do like a shorter version of that, which is just kind of like arm lock, and you just
Sure.
get the arm on the back and just take them down. So you got a bit more space. There's certain techniques like or Ilimanagi and stuff like that. It's just like sometimes it's not practical for where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the great thing about Aikido. It's always given me that choice, you know, other than just, you know, to kick somebody or to punch somebody.
Sure.
You know, I know how to punch. I punch quite hard from the Wing Chun and everything, but it's always given me a little bit of choice, which has been great.
You know, in fact, as I'm thinking about it, some of the big throws with Aikido could probably even be overkill. You know, somebody goes to grab you and you turn them heads upside down and they land on their head because they don't do no ukemi. That can be, nothing hits harder than the planet, which is throw somebody to the ground, and that can really jack someone up.
It's so true. But often it depends on what you're doing. I remember being in a situation where I performed the Tenshinagi on this guy. We kicked him out of the club and he just turned on some random passerby, headbutted him and got him down to the ground and started kicking him. And I ran up and I did a Tenshinagi on him. Now, the impact, literally, it hit him, boom, and he just fell down like a tree, boom. It knocked him out cold. It just knocked him out. And immediately I'm thinking, oh, I'm scared. I'm going to get arrested again. You know, oh no, I'm finished, you know. You know, police came. This guy was out cold for about 3 minutes. Police came, and then police officer didn't even speak to me. He just walked down to check out the CCTV. And then he came up to me and said to me, okay, so explain what happened. And I said, well, look, you know, he got into a conversation with this guy. He got him down on the floor, and he started kicking him on the floor. Now, I ran up, and my aim was just to kind of grab him and hold him, I said. But then I kind of went too far, and he moved forward a bit, and then he just impacted on me at my shoulder, and then he just fell down. And I don't know what was going on. I didn't know what happened. The police officer looked at me and goes to me, yeah, that's exactly what it looked like on the CCTV. But obviously, he didn't realize that I just did a Tenshinagi on him. You know, clothesline, boom, I came in. But in his eyes, it just looked like I was just trying to grab him, and we just collided. And that's what I said. And it was just like, great, got away with that one. And I'll tell you, this was a few years after the situation where I got arrested. And my heart was just pounding because I just thought to myself, oh my God, I'm going to get arrested again tonight. I've just knocked a guy out on the front door.
Right. And
it was fortunate that Aikido gave, you know, it would have been so much different if I elbowed him in his face or I punched him. It would have been a whole different story. But because it was just, you know, a Tenshinagi, this police officer doesn't know that I study Aikido. It was just like, okay, yeah, that's what it looked like to me. And then he walked away, and that was it. You know, relief. So yeah, Aikido has helped me also, you know, not only get out of situations, but, you know, prevented me from getting into a really bad situation.
Well, and that's like what we were talking about a little bit earlier, where you had to intervene to save somebody that was getting beat up, like a helpless person was getting victimized.
Exactly.
So now if you have to intervene, and I don't even think you could fairly say, well, Azu, you should have done that because you were working a door. If I was just a person standing there, I would have let that guy get perhaps killed. Like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't let an innocent person get, you know, knocked to the ground and kicked in the head by somebody. I'd have to do something. I'd feel compelled to help them. You know.
Exactly. I've actually got that footage on CCTV, but because the manager actually gave it to me, the recording, but it's really poor quality because this was like a long time ago. But it was really poor quality, but you just vaguely see me. You kind of see it, and you see me kind of come with a Tenshinagi, and the guy just disappears out of view with the camera. But yeah, it was I sometimes show that to my students because I want them to, you know, sometimes the thing about Aikido is that some people, you get skepticals, and some people come and be like, nah, you know, that's not really, no, when you teach Tenshinagi, you teach it in a certain way, you know, the heaven and earth and all that stuff, and they're kind of confused. And when I say, look, in the real situation, this is how you use it, it's more like, it can translate to just a simple clothesline. But it's about getting that moving your body in assertively. And I showed them the CCTV footage to show, look, this is basically what this technique is.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a more of a understanding of how
Sure.
it works. I feel like Aikido is a lot like, some of Aikido is a lot like the Karate Kid movie, when he's doing the wax on and wax off, and he doesn't know what the
movements are.
Yeah, he doesn't know until he gets into a situation and he realizes what it's all about. And that's what Aikido has been a lot for me. My sensei used to teach us a lot of foot movements and stuff like that, and I'd be like, what's all this about? Like, I want to learn how to, I want to learn how to do something.
I want to put somebody down.
Yes, exactly. I remember after certain lessons where sometimes we'd have 2 hours of doing foot movements, movement, dodging, avoiding. And when we're putting the mats away, I would say to one of the people I train, listen, let me just, throw a punch and, let's just quickly do something like, I want to throw you. I want to be thrown as well, let me do something, do a kotegaji on me, or, I wanted to just feel some of that, 2 hours of just moving around, and I couldn't I just thought, what's all this about? I hate these lessons. But only as I went a few years down the line, I realized, okay, that's what it's all about. I understand why my sensei was so adamant about us learning these movements. But, you just got to stick with it.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that, because I started my dojo about 9 years ago. So I've learned a lot about teaching since I started. And one of the things I really wanted to do was to overcome that very issue that you talk about, which is, how long does it take before you start to feel like you have some practical understanding? And there's a number of great arts out there that within 6 months, they get some good practical understanding to their students. And I think Aikido can do the exact same thing. There's no excuse that we need to say, you got to do 3 or 4 or 5 years before you start getting any practical, practical idea. And now you don't have to be killing each other, but I've sort of used my teaching and my students as a test bed. See, how can we go, even taking a brand new person that walks in off the street in the first week and say, I'm going to show you a Tenchinage that will take you down. And if you want to put somebody down who's big, these are the formula for how you do it, and this is what you need to do. And of course, the footwork is important. The crucial points of making those things work. They have to be there. But I don't think there's any reason you need to wait 2 or 3 years to start showing students how effectively you can take somebody's posture and balance, and how quickly you do it with those good fundamentals.
And that's one of the reasons. Another reason why I actually got hooked on Aikido, because I remember going to my first lesson and being able to come home to my sister, say to her, sister, look, grab my wrist. And I would show her something, because obviously when you're first learning, you just learn from simple wrist grabs and stuff. And I would show her something like a Nikyo or something, and she'd be like, ow! And I'd be like, okay, in one day I've learned something that I can come out and show people and inflict a bit of pain. And that's what appealed to me as well. Like, people come into my dojo, and I always make sure they're able to leave with just like at least one technique that they can go and show somebody and be like, okay, I like this kind of works, it was a good technique, and I really enjoy doing it and just performing those techniques. And that's what's great, because I know other martial arts, I don't know how long does it take before you can throw a decent punch or a decent kick. You can't come to a karate class and for after one day go home and show somebody a roundhouse kick. You can't do that. But at least I know with Aikido, you can go home and show somebody a Nikyo or a kotegaji. And it's like, that's what appealed to me so much. And you're so right. You can just come with people, students can just learn, pick up techniques very quickly. There's also the very complex part of, certain bits are much harder to learn.
Oh yeah.
You give them something easy just to entice them and give them an idea of, look, this is what it's about, and this is what you'll be learning in the future. And although you can do it now to a certain degree, I remember I used to do certain techniques and I thought I was good at them. And then when my sensei done it to me, it was like, wow, I can't do it like that. I can't do it like that. Right. Although I went home thinking, I can, I've learned something. But then that just made me want to be able to do it like my sensei could do it.
Right. Yeah, you can't expect perfection out of 6-month students. In fact, this is one of my favorite stories. Is that one of my most devoted students? He was now he's retired, but he was a SWAT team officer and a medic on a firefighting team. And his daughter came and signed up. She was 15 years old, and now she was pretty physical. She was a rugby player, but she's a 15-year-old girl, and he was probably 225 pounds, at about 6 feet, bigger than she was, and it was within her first couple of weeks of classes. And of course, he's eager, and he's a practically minded guy. He says, she comes home and says, "All right, show me what you learned tonight." And I don't even remember what the technique was, but she just boom, and she puts him right down on the floor. And he's like, honestly, God, the next 2 days he was in there. He's like, I want to come and take a class. You guys are doing. You wouldn't believe how she put me down. And he became a dojo rat. He was in there all the time. He's he got his black belt this last fall, and he's been with me for 5, 6, 7 years. But he's went through a number. He's one of my favorite students for coming back with stories of what he's used on the job and in training. And he even a couple of times has said, Aikido has taught me, just like you were talking about earlier, it's taught me to be calm. I've seen situations that in my younger days I would have gotten amped up and I would use all my strength or all my power to try to overcome somebody, but I know I don't need to use all that. I've been able to use just a little bit, and it works great. We always talk about less is more. The less you use, the more effect you can have. And he's even had an instance where some perp was doing something that it should have got him killed. It was almost a suicide by cop type situation, and he was able to intervene. He saved the guy's life, which means he saved some cop from having to shoot somebody and probably kill him, and then have to move his family. Over here, a lot of times when a cop is involved in a fatal shooting, to protect the officer and his family, they'll often relocate him. So they don't, get in a sticky situation. But and it would have been a nationwide media event, and this was probably 1.5 years ago, so it was not that long, or 2 years ago. So Aikido, I think, not only from a physical standpoint is a blessing, but it's also what it does to your spirit. It makes you look at things in a different way, in terms of how can I solve this problem easier, smoother, quicker. And going back to the club, all the pros that I've ever worked with, the ones that were always at the top of their game can deal with a violent situation and have that customer be willing to come back the next day. So you know what, tonight, right now, this is not cool. You need to go home, come back when you're sober up. We'd love to have you drink here again or whatever. And if you're that smooth, and I think as a civilian, the same rules apply. If you can deal with somebody who's violent in such a great way that they can leave not wanting to come back and knock your teeth out or come back and shoot you, you're doing great. Like, to me, that's a great expression of that spiritual side of Aikido.
Yeah, true. It's so true. Aikido taught me how to. One of my main issues was not using my strength, and I always used to pit my strength against other people.
Big guys always do that. That's a common thing to have to overcome.
And what I learned was, I remember being in a situation where somebody tried to force their way into the club, and this guy was massive, and I'm pitting my strength trying to push him back. Now, I know Aikido has since taught me to, I could have moved to one side and spun him around and then take him out the same way he came. And, there's so many different options. I could have, instead of pitting my strength about, we kind of locked arms and was kind of push each other out. I could have gone for the chin or something like that, or, I could have got him off balance and gone this way, but, I used to just pit my strength against people. But it taught me not to do that, which is even better, because it makes it almost like even in my dojo, like I've got dojo and called AZ self-defense, we call it. And I always show, when I teach self-defense, I always show people, I'll grab somebody and I'll say, what's your main instinct? And they try to pull out. And when they try to pull out, I up my strength. And they pull out more, and I give more strength. And I always teach people, that's what happens in a situation. When you pit strength against people, they'll try to up their strength, and you up your strength, they up their strength, and then whoever's stronger will win. If you just relax and don't try to pit your strength against them, and then suddenly you just explode, sudden movement, you'll have the advantage. You know, you just kind of, it's if you try to, someone grabs your wrist, you try to pull it out slowly, they'll strengthen that. But if you just kind of relax your wrist and suddenly whip it out, you know, you'll have more of a chance of getting away. I always try to tell people, relax, don't try to use your strength, just use your body movement and just try to get them off balance. And that's one of the best things about Aikido. You can pit yourself up against somebody who is much stronger than you.
One thing I've also noticed about real world exchanges is that placement, where you are in relation to the other person, is well, it's crucial in all arts, but in a civilian type situation, a lot of people don't move their feet. They don't notice somebody shifting off to a flank, or they don't notice or adjust like you see like a really good judo competitor. He's always moving his feet around because he knows if he doesn't, he's going to get outmaneuvered. People normally don't appreciate just how much they're being outmaneuvered, even by a small shift or a small control of distance, or a, you know, turning your body a little bit. And I think those initial setups are things you never see them in a sport fight, really. I mean, you see a version of them, but these athletes are watching for it. But when you're in a verbal exchange with somebody, a lot of times those things are never even noticed. And I've got a number of police officer friends that they'll never let somebody walk up straight and talk to them. They'll always turn to the side a little bit and sort of slip to the flank, even if they're best friends with you, because it's just a habit they build to always get to a slight advantage position, because you never know. You're never sure when somebody approaches you, or at least they're not. You know, of course, they're on always a heightened sense of, you know, concern, because, you know, that's kind of their job. But it really comes down to that footwork and placement and being able to shift and do it subtly.
Positioning. You know, you need to push yourself in. I think we made a video on that a long time ago about how to position yourself in a fight. But it's all about positioning, and like it can just, you know, get you ready for anything.
Sure. And if you're in the right spot, almost any Arimi technique is going to work like a dream. I've found that Shomanate, Sayonage, Tenshinage, and straight up Ariminage are like magic when you're in the right place, and you can kind of do it from a number of different places, but boy howdy, when you unleash that thing, it's just a fantastic tool.
Yes, indeed. My battery's about to die.
Oh, sure.
I need to charge my phone.
Sure. Well, was there any other subjects you wanted to get in? I realize we've been probably on for just about an hour now, which is a good length for an episode. Was there anything?
Time flies. No, to be honest, I think I've kind of covered a lot. You know, I just love to talk about Aikido. You know, what it's done for me.
We're all just martial art geeks.
It's true. It's so true. Like, I grew up like watching kung fu movies.
Oh yeah, me too.
You know, the old school kung fu movies. You know, like, you know, all the old school Jackie Chan stuff, John Liu, you know, Tino Wong, Billy Chong, all these old school. I actually met. I don't know if you've seen a film called Drunken Master.
Yes, I have. Yep.
The bad guy, Wang Jiangli, Silver Fox. I met him in real life, you know.
Really? Okay.
He came to England. I went and met him, shook his hand, took pictures, and that was like a moment for me. So I grew up watching kung fu movies, so it's kind of surprising how it was Aikido that really appealed to me. Because I never kind of went to learn kung fu. I loved the movies, loved watching it, but it was a Steven Seagal movie that just made me say, nah, I like the way that looks. I like the idea of that. I like the idea of being able to just, you know, use my hands and my, you know, my momentum, the other person's strength against them. That just really appealed to me. And that's why I'm surprised to this day, because I've got hundreds of kung fu movies, hundreds of them. I'm just surprised that there was actually Aikido that really appealed to me. Yeah,
that's really cool. Are you guys doing filming now for AikidoFlow, or is you able to kind of get some more episodes coming out? Are we
Oh
looking?
yeah, definitely. We're literally just kind of in the process of we're about to do some more filming for it. So probably over the next few weeks we're going to start filming some more and do like another season, basically.
Wonderful.
So yeah, we're just in the process of that now. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So getting together again. We were supposed to do a lot of stuff in the summer, but obviously because of the COVID-19 and all that,
Yep.
we weren't able to get together. But
Yep.
now we're more, comfortable. Now the government's relaxed their restrictions and we're no longer in lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
We said we're going to do it, but before we'd all get together and do it. But so now we're going to just keep it to a few people at a time.
Sure.
So we're going to kind of do it in stages. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I encourage everybody, if you haven't already, checked out the AikidoFlow channel on YouTube, definitely check that out. I appreciate it, Azu. Thank you for this conversation. I look forward to chatting again. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been great to chat to you.
Excellent. All right, you take care.
All right, take care. All right.
Thank you very much for watching and supporting this podcast. Enjoy your training.